Good morning, fellow Ambazonians. Today, na Country Sunday, Monday, number 12 day for this number 9 month for the year 2022. My name na Capo Daniel, the Deputy Defense Chief and the spokesman of the Ambazonian Governing Council, aka Sense Pass King, una own countryman. Una welcome to our daily podcast, a program where they bring una meaningful information, the truth, fact-based analysis for help we as we waka for this journey to our freedom, the independence of Ambazonia. Good citizens of Ambazonia. Ambazonia, it be at a crossroad. That means say we don't reach for a junction. Junction na place where you could decide whether you go na for left or you could go na for right. Una welcome once again. But before we get to that, we go one for report incident where it don't take place for Boom district for Fonfoka in the great state of Boyo, where the Cameroon vigilante will be bring in by Ngala Gerard, they be host for inside Boom. They don't wake up with their excesses them yesterday for launch an attack against the hospital where they for inside Fonfoka. The Fulani vigilante then broke inside the hospital, carry all medicine where they for they carry small cash where they for inside, and the one go then kidnap the pastor when I take care for that health center Pajo Njikakwa. The Cameroon vigilante they carry out excessive as the ram begin shidong for long time without job. These are mainly Fulani, former Boko Haram fighters that have been hired mainly from Kano in Nigeria and being used under the direct control of Cameroon enablers in concert with the Cameroon occupation forces in Ambazonia. Over the weekend, the Cameroon occupation forces in the capital of Ambazonia in Buea have shot and killed an Ambazonian citizen for refusing to turn over his mobile phone. There have been no communication to condemn this attack for the so-called House of Chiefs and the other enablers and religious authorities who claim to speak for the interests and for justice and peace in Buea. This is to show our people that these people do not care and do not represent our interests. The Cameroon occupation forces have been killing our people with impunity. They are the reasons why we must fight to keep ourselves free from Cameroon terrorism and occupation. Even in La République du Cameroon, Ambazonians are still being chased down, identified and hunted down for exploitation, as video footages in Douala have gone viral in a hotel where an Ambazonian businessman was simply harassed in the hotel and taken away by Cameroon gendarmes. In the video footage, he was being manhandled, being pushed up and down and dragged into a vehicle by Cameroon gendarmes and taken away for suspicion of being an Ambazonian. People like this will end up paying millions for them to be released, otherwise they will be transferred into Yaoundé Kundengi concentration camps. While in other related news, the chief prosecutor of the ICC, Mr. Karim Khan, he then put out a statement in which he says that schools must be a place where children feel safe to learn and play. Attacks on education facilities, pupils, students, and teachers are unacceptable and may constitute Rome Statute crimes. My office will work with all partners to seek accountability of such act. This one it come as many NGOs that have been sponsored by Cameroon, especially the Shada, an organization led by Agbo Bala, have been pushing the international community to distort Ambazonian education policy to reflect a complete ban and opposition to education and attacks generally against teachers and students. These have been the pillar stone of Cameroon campaign internationally against Ambazonia, the issue of education. Cameroon have painted the picture that Ambazonians are against education. Ambazonians do not want school. Ambazonians are attacking schools, killing children and teachers. These attacks have been very successful in the international communities who see students and teachers' education as vital for any sustainable development and for any progress, both in human rights and in terms of peace. For the past 3 years, the Ambazonian Governing Council have been very proactive in fighting this push by the Cameroon government. This year in particular, we have not had help from other Ambazonian organizations, activists and leaders who have stayed mute for political reasons, while the Cameroon government and their intelligence wing and Atanganjipo have manipulated Ambazonian fighters who have assembled themselves, some of them lending themselves to invisible men, some in Kondengi and others in the diaspora, who have called for a lockdown that have helped Cameroon to build this narrative and are now pushing for criminal perspective on Ambazonian policy for education. The statement from the prosecutor of the ICC, Mr. Karim Khan, should be a wake-up call for all Ambazonian activists and various movements who, for political reasons, are supporting a counterproductive lockdown. What this lockdown have demonstrated is exactly what the Cameroon government wants to demonstrate: a complete distortion of Ambazonian policy of education. Ambazonians do not oppose education or attack schools. Those who are doing so are Atanganjipo boys. Even if they are Ambazonian fighters, they are being influenced in the back by Atanganjipo with his network of advisors and sponsors who are misleading our soldiers. Ambazonians are for education. We have opened up community schools. We have authorized community schools to be open. We are now publicly campaigning for the various Ambazonian factions and activists to adopt and endorse and support the policy of education being put forth in action and in words by the Ambazonian Governing Council. That will be the right thing to do. This statement from the ICC should be a fact and a cause for alarm for anybody who truly is fighting for Ambazonia and who care about our prospect for having our independence. Community school is the way, and it is the only sustainable way to create space for us to fight to liberate our homeland, while torpedoing any effort by Cameroon to sabotage, blackmail, defame Ambazonian liberation movement. Failure to take action on this path will be citing or enabling Cameroon manipulation of the international community to be established. And every Ambazonian who opposes community school or take actions that sabotage the projection of community school will be indirectly or inadvertently be helping Cameroon government to destroy Ambazonian prospect for independence. Statement and such redefining of Ambazonian posture will be a great directive and indication to the international community for the type of attractions or solutions that will be proposed eventually to resolve the Ambazonian sovereignty question in our fight for decolonization. Still in the same light, the Ambazonian bishop for Insa Buea, he don't give Bishop Baby, he don't put out a statement for condemn the attack against the bus where they be attack him for this lockdown for inside Buea Kumba Road. The incident will be take place for May 30 for around Moyoka Day, where a bus where we carry civilian, they be open fire for the bus, then kill a number of Ambazonian there. And also for inside May 16 also for Buea, an action will be take place, evidence. It don't show now say they be kill one civilian for they be shot dead as well. All activity them where it be seen in the light of the lockdown, where some forces that they call them on the ground. Ultimately, all this chaos of the war and the consequences of this war lie on the shoulder of the Cameroon occupation that have created these circumstances of this chaos and all this atrocity. Cameroon should stop. They should withdraw from Ambazonia, and this will bring peace and justice for our people. But we also have taken note that the Cameroon occupation forces, they ran kill somebody in Buea. The bishop also condemned that particular attack, and we call on all Ambazonian activists them and all groups them. We notice say only the consortium it don't condemn this particular attack. All those who have supported the lockdown or have called for the lockdown have failed to condemn this attack against our innocent civilians. This attack constitutes a crime against Ambazonians and must be condemned by all those who have called for lockdown to send a clear messages that their support is not endorsing and reinforcing the idea that the use of excessive force against innocent and unarmed civilians is somehow justified. On Thursday, the Ambazonia Defense Forces in Chomba, one of our unit, a specialized unit which have also gone rogue and had participated somehow in disruption of activities to enforce a lockdown around Chomba, successfully carried out an attack against the Cameroon occupation forces due to internal struggle and enforcement of our chain of order with our forces in the Chomba Brigade to bring things in order. This activity was not widely reported by the Ambazonian communication, the communication of the governing council. We want to take the opportunity to congratulate our forces in Chomba for the brave attack that saw the neutralization of 4 Cameroon occupation forces. 2 of them were picked up in a bar while they were drinking, and in their resisting of arrest, they were neutralized. In total, 4 Cameroon occupation forces were neutralized in around Mile 6 in MANKON by the Ambazonia Defense Forces unit from Chomba. As usual, the occupation Cameroon alien forces, they came in with backup over the weekend to carry reprisal attack. They did not go after our soldiers, but they turned to civilians in MANKON, burning down scores of houses, destroying provision store and looting them. This is a clear indication that the Ambazonian forces represent Ambazonia and the Cameroon military represent an alien and foreign government. That is why an attack against Cameroon forces is responded by an attack against the Ambazonian people from the Cameroon state militaries in Ambazonia. Ambazonians should come together and know that this war is about all of us. It should not be left in the hands of our soldiers and our fighters, but should be seen as a collective war, a collective resistance against Cameroon subjugation and recolonization of our territory. As will be talk for the beginning of this our podcast, the title for today na say we dey for junction. As I talk, Ambazonian it don reach in a crossroad, a junction we need for decide the direction we would go. The international community they don't hear cases for both sides, and the Cameroon government they don't try for distort Ambazonia in presenting their one Cameroon, making sure the whole war look at Cameroon and Ambazonia as part of that Cameroon, being the English-speaking part of one Cameroon. The Ambazonian uprising, the Ambazonian liberation struggle have been fighting to state the truth that we are a sovereign people, a sovereign state that deserve and is entitled to the right of self-determination for complete decolonization and outright independence of our country. The distortion have been said, the propaganda have been made, our case have been made, our advocacy have been made. We are in a decisive stage in our liberation struggle as the war grapple around and the international community, the NGOs, try to define and prescribe a solution for our struggle, and Ambazonians have been distracted for the most part, with IG number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1, or positioning themselves, waiting somehow that manna will fall from heaven. While they fight to position themselves to be president, Ambazonian soldiers on the ground have dissociated themselves from the IG, denouncing their leaders in the diaspora. The Ambazonian Governing Council on its own have been fighting its battle and also fighting what it considers as distraction and interference sometimes to the policy that it advocates, as other groups claim, exclusive power, even though they don't have the power exclusively. As you can see in the lockdown that have been declared by other forces in other areas where we control, life have gone on normal with Ambazonian authorized activities also taking place normal. This is a collective struggle. We must all realize that no one person sway absolute control of Ambazonia. Even though you have dominant forces, dominant movement, more influential and more consequential leaders in terms of their consequence in leadership in the actions that fight against Cameroon, we must all collaborate and recognize that leadership is in terms of the level or degree of influence over fighting, sustained fighting, and leadership in inspiring actions that contradicts or challenge Cameroon both diplomatically and psychology on the ground. Now, what does it mean Ambazonia is at a decisive period in its history? I will want to draw inspiration from statement that was made by the head of NATO and the Secretary of State Antony Blinken of the United States of America as they join to address the issue of the Russian war in Ukraine that reflects in matter of international principle the same conflict we have of sovereignty as Cameroon cites its historic link with Ambazonia to claim sovereign power over our state and our destiny. Let's listen.
Much higher price if Russia and other authoritarian regimes see that their aggression is rewarded.
I go to interject. The Secretary of NATO, Itokse Ibi, very important, make all dictators and authoritarian regimes across the globe, they understand, say, aggression will never be rewarded. This include Cameroon, that have declared war against Ambazonians simply rising up for issues that was raised by the civil society about their difficulties and the effect of Cameroon francophonization and attempt of assimilation of the people of Ambazonia. Let's continue.
If Russia stops fighting, there will be peace. If Ukraine stops fighting, it will cease to exist as an independent nation. So we must stay the course for Ukraine's sake and for ours. At the same time, we are sending an unmistakable message to Moscow about our readiness to protect and defend every inch of Allied territory.
The whole statement boils down to this. If Russia stops fighting, there will be peace. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine will never exist as a nation and a sovereign state and a people. It's the same international principle in Ambazonia. If Ambazonia were to stop fighting, stop resisting, Ambazonia will never exist as a sovereign state and its people will never exist as a people that are recognized with the right of self-determination. The solutions offered by Cameroon is that of decentralization within the states of one sovereignty of Cameroon. Even autonomy is not even considered, and this position have been endorsed and supported by France that backs Cameroon. This will mean that any surrender, compromise of Ambazonia to Cameroon solution will mean that Ambazonia will never exist again as a state or as a territory, autonomy, or sovereignty, or people, whatever stage you may want to call it. If Ambazonians were to stop fighting, it will be all about our history. We will be gone forever. This should inform those who are calling for an end to Ambazonian fighting. Those who ask for an end of Ambazonian fighting are asking for the annihilation of an entire people, genocide culturally, stately, even against our sovereignty, which is something the international war order was built to protect and defend, the sovereign right of a people and an internationally recognized territory like that of Ambazonia. We must not only stay the course, we must double our effort as the only way to be a people and to exist as such, and an only way for us to attain full sovereign state as an independent people of Ambazonia. As we reach this crossroad, Ambazonians should choose carefully what they tolerate, what they accept, and what they entertain, knowing very well that whatever way the pendulum may swing will depend ultimately with what we as a people projects to the international community or stands for. The fight over little policies such as education have serious ramifications and consequences on our projection of what we truly want as a people. Stand for Ambazonian sovereignty, Ambazonian self-determination, Ambazonians governance and rule, which is what our policy pushes to our people. Advocate for it, defend it jealously, knowing that it is the action of a small steering that determine the direction of an entire vehicle and her occupants. Capo Daniel, signing off.